everyone, and welcome to this second of 3 virtual sessions of the Technical Expert Meeting on Mitigation, the TEM-M-2020 event series on human settlements, sustainable low-emission housing and building solutions, technologies and design for buildings, housing, and construction. This year's TEM-M was co-organized by the Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction, Global ABC, together with the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC Secretariat. My name is Marion Canute. I'm a broadcast journalist and communication specialist, and I'm delighted to be your moderator for this session. And by the way, this session is being recorded. Now, last Wednesday, we talked about cool buildings for all. Today's session is about building back better, mobilizing the building's value chain towards circular economy. A key ingredient, of course, of building back better is for the building and construction sector to lower its carbon footprint throughout its life cycle. That is, from design through construction and disposal. In just a moment, we'll be meeting a panel of 6 expert speakers who will highlight different aspects of the circularity approach to building, as they share their insights on trends, challenges, and solutions. It's worth noting that the discussion will also include a lot of positives, as we hear about the opportunities offered by a post-COVID recovery to very literally build back better, all with the target of achieving zero-emission buildings by the year 2050. A very warm welcome to you, our panelists. I look forward to introducing you in just a moment. In the second half of the session, we take advantage of the plus side of being the first TEM-M to have gone fully virtual by asking that you, our online audience, make your voices heard via 2 interactive platforms. The first is the Microsoft Teams chat panel on the right side of your screen. You can use this to send your questions and comments to our panelists, who will be answering them during the Q&A part of this session. And please feel free to direct your questions to a specific speaker or speakers. The second tool available for your feedback is an online polling platform called Mentimeter, which some of you may already be familiar with. It's a live poll with a series of topical questions and multiple choice answers. For that, please go to www.menti.com and use the code 9278035. We will share the polling results during the Q&A segment. And I would like to take this opportunity to really urge you strongly to participate, because your input is very valuable to the TEM-M process and to this climate discussion, especially as the outcomes from this meeting will inform important policy recommendations, and your voice does make a difference. And now we turn to our panel of experts. I am delighted to introduce our first speaker, who along with our second panelist will set the stage, or lay the building blocks as it were, for today's theme and for the other topics by outlining general trends and responses related to moving the built environment towards circularity. Allow me to introduce Linda Hoiby. She is an experienced strategic sustainability and circular economy senior advisor, and that's a mouthful, and she's also a thought leader within sustainability. She holds a degree in civil engineering, and she works with Cowie, a leading international consulting group within engineering, economics, and environmental science. Linda gained deep knowledge and insight into the building and construction sector through a long portfolio of consultancies and project assignments for private companies, public and regional authorities, the European Commission, and others. She previously presented recommendations to the Nordic Council of Ministers and to the Nordic parliaments. Linda, a very warm welcome to you. Please unmute yourself, make sure that your camera is on, and the microphone is now yours.
Thank you, Marion. I'll just share my screen. Great. I'm going to start out by painting a rather gloomy picture of the situation. It is often said that we share the planet and all the resources it holds.
Excuse me, Linda, I don't think we see your shared screen yet, if I may interrupt.
Sorry, I'll just go check.
Let's try that again.
Yeah.
Yes, I think we're getting it now. Yes, there we go. Absolutely perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So it is often said that we share the planet and all the resources it holds, but we are leaving a deep trace behind us instead of paving a way forward by digging deeper into the resources of the Earth. On an annual basis, we consume almost 4 billion gallons of oil, almost 1,000 million tons of coal, and around 18 million metric tons of copper, and much more. According to the World Bank, one of the major consumers of natural resources is the building and construction sector. Alone in 2012, it generated 1.3 billion tons of waste, and the amount of waste is actually expected to rise to a dramatic 2.5 billion tons in 2025. So on the one hand, we consume huge amounts of resources, and on the other hand, we dispose of enormous amounts of waste. Or are we in reality just disposing resources which could be recycled or reused? Or could we design out waste? This is where the circular economy can come into play on a large scale if we can disconnect the established connection between economic growth and the unconscious use of natural resources. Luckily, there's a growing awareness of the immense potential in applying a more holistic view on how we consume resources. The question is, how do we leverage the circular economy to become the captain of the ships that will steer us into safer waters? From my point of view, as a senior sustainability consultant in the Danish engineering consulting company Covi, I must say that I see a great potential in the circular economy. The number of cases is increasing every day. Let me just briefly mention some of the cases that I've personally had the chance to be involved in. The first topic is lower risk by decoupling the economic growth from the use of primary resources. One example is the global company Grundfos, which produces pumps and has an impressive annual turnover of almost $4 billion. They started out their journey into circular economy by actually ensuring that the design of their water pumps supports an increase in circularity. Also, Grundfos has also changed their business model to enable take-back. Another example is increased values throughout the value chain. A good example is told by Jacob Rørbæk from the window producing company Velux, which collaborates with new private partners to collect used windows to be recycled or even reused in the Netherlands. And my third example is reduced costs. We can reduce the cost of resources when primary resources are replaced by secondary materials. For example, by substituting cement with alternative secondary resources. Another example is roofing felt, which can be made from recycled plastic and old bituminous roofing felts. And I could go on and on. If more companies were to follow these examples, we could reduce the environmental impact of planet Earth, which is crucial to us. So, if the circular economy transition should be successful, we need to first understand that using the business perspective in speak, thought, and actions are vital. In other words, we should avoid pure environmental arguments. We should also revert from the least impacts perspective and begin looking at where we can find the largest possible gains. This perspective can help us by creating value by adding functionalities and multimodal solutions into buildings and construction. It can also ensure that we're changing perceptions by recognizing that what we call waste today is in fact resources which must be reused and recycled in the best way possible. We should also create new business models to enable closer relations between the building material producers and customers by ensuring repairability and retrofitting. And the last would be design for standardization, compatibility, and disassembly, and the use of non-hazardous products for improved durability. So to sum this up, the outlook may be gloomy, but there's a strong backwind and a sea of opportunities lying ahead of us. The challenge is to get everyone aboard, globally and across sectors, business industries, and policymakers, so that we can all steer in the same direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda Højby, for that interesting presentation and for your insights, and also for helping to set the stage for the other speaker topics today. We'll continue now on the same theme of moving the built environment towards circularity with our next speaker, Magali Anderson. Magali is a French national. She was appointed as a member of the Group Executive Committee of Lafarge Holcim in October 2019. She joined the company as Group Head of Health and Safety in 2016. Magali started out as a field engineer on offshore oil rigs in Nigeria. She spent 27 years in the oil and gas industry, mainly with Schlumberger, holding operational line management positions like CEO Angola and Region Head Europe. During her career, she also held several functional roles, including Vice President Marketing and Sales, Vice President Shared Services Organization for Europe and Africa Region, and Global Head of Maintenance. She graduated as a mechanical engineer from INSA Lyon in France. Magali, a warm welcome to the panel, and now over to you.
Thank you very much, Marion. Let me share my screen, and while I share, I would just first like to say, sorry, let me here tell. Okay, is that all right? Do you see it well?
Yes, we see it. We see a PowerPoint screen in the middle of it, though.
Oh, that's
a little window.
Yeah, let me see if I can. Is that okay now?
I still see that window on my screen. If you can perhaps close there, it's perfect. It's gone.
Oh,
wonderful.
Okay.
Perfect.
That's when I'm in presentation screen that it's with. Anyway, thank you very much for welcoming me, and I'm very happy to be speaking with such a distinguished panel. And it's super timing, you know, we announced our signing of the pledge during the New York Climate Week 2 weeks ago. So very happy to be talking about what we do on the circularity. And today what I would like to address is the 40 billion tons challenge. About 90 billion tons is being extracted from Earth every year. Out of that, almost 50%, which is 40 billion tons, is used for housing and infrastructure. So, as you said, Marion, earlier, it is a challenge, but it's also an incredible opportunity, because all this construction we do are future demolition waste we will be able to recycle in our products. OECD told us that in the next 30 to 40 years, this amount will double. So,
sorry to interrupt you, Magali. Could you go into presentation mode? Because then it's easier to read the figures.
Yeah. And before you had a problem when you were seeing it. Can you see it well now?
It's not yet in presentation mode. So maybe we just need to give it a second.
Yeah. Let me know when it's all good.
No, not yet.
Oh, it is on my screen.
Otherwise, Benita, maybe if you and FCCC can share it, is that possible?
Yeah, because I have it on I see it on presentation mode on my screen. Let me just take 1 second to de-share and reshare. Maybe that could help.
Yeah, that's also true.
Stop sharing and share again. Yeah. Yeah. Is that better?
No, it's the same.
Oh, then there's something wrong with my computer. So maybe Marion, if you, Nora, if you want to share yours.
Sure, I can do that.
Sorry about that. Maybe I can continue so we don't waste too much time. So I was just saying how with the coming increase of what we expect to increase as the amount of waste, it's really super important that we go through a paradigm change. And if you go to the next slide, please, Nora. And the paradigm change is really where we need to have a vision of decoupling the growth of our industry from the extraction of virgin material. And this is super important because it's a complete change of business model and it's a complete change of mindset. And if we look at the full cycle of how our products are, we start by the way we produce cement and concrete, where we can, for example, replace all the fossil fuel that we use for our kilns by some alternative fuel, for example, which is biomass, etc. In the building site, we can be much more efficient. If you build with the idea of recycling, you can start using, for example, modular type of building, which will be able to be entirely recycled at the end. We need to maintain because, you know, a building you don't build is resources you don't take. It sounds obvious, but it's something maybe, again, we might not have today integrated in our mindset. But then at the end of this life cycle of that building, once you have finished, once you have tried maintaining it, the building itself becomes what we call construction and demolition waste. And that construction and demolition waste goes back to our virgin material and reducing the virgin material we use. And this is all kind of waste coming from municipal waste, industrial, minerals, etc. So at LafargeHolcim, we use about 620 million tons of raw material. Last year, we recycled 48 million tons, which is 100 times more than the waste we actually generate. And our objective by the next decade is to double that. To put things in perspective, we are the second biggest waste treatment company. So some people actually say we are a waste treatment company that makes cement as a byproduct. That's how we consider waste in our company. And Nora, if you want to go to the last slide, please. But the idea of all this waste we recycle is, what do we do with it? Obviously, it's not just a question of recycling it, is making it as products and products that are part of our portfolio. And we spent about 50% of our R&D resources doing that, creating that portfolio. So I put a couple of examples here. One, which is cement, which is made in Switzerland, where we use 20% of construction and demolition waste straight into the cement. That's the most recycled or the most waste content cement in the world today. We do the same with concrete, but the one I want to take 2 minutes talking about is Durabrick. This is actually bricks that we make locally using local resources, and the way we make them, where we mix, sorry, I was talking French here, where we mix earth, sand, cement, and water, and we don't need to burn them. So not only we save 1 ton of CO2 for 160 bricks, but for each house that we build, it's equivalent of 14 trees that have not been burned. So we actually call that program 14 trees. And I really like it because we're doing it in Malawi. It makes it super affordable houses, and I think it's very important in our journey. So that's the end of my presentation. I just want to conclude saying that we can do circular construction, and we need all the players on the value chain and people who are on the panel today to contribute to that. It's a 40 billion challenge that can be transformed entirely in an opportunity if we all get together in it. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Magali, for that interesting presentation and for issuing that challenge for all of us. We need to hear more of that. Before we continue, I'd just like to remind you to go to menti.com to participate in our online poll. And now our next panelist will drill down a bit as he talks about how sustainable buildings are an opportunity for innovation, jobs, and local growth. Dr. Jeremy Gibbard is the director of GAGE, a specialist built environment consultancy in South Africa that supports the development of more sustainable and inclusive built environments. He's developed innovative and effective tools and approaches which have formed the basis for legislation, policy, guidelines, training, and a wide range of urban education, housing, and commercial projects in Africa. Jeremy, thank you for joining our panel today. I invite you to jump right in. The virtual stage is yours.
Thank you, Marianne. Let's just make sure my screen is shared.
Okay.
Is that working?
It looks good, and you seem to be in the right mode. It seems very clear. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. What I'm going to talk about is kind of three ideas around circular buildings. So the first is around innovation, the second is around jobs, and the third is around local growth. I think the situation we're in with COVID and also the Sustainable Development Goals means that we not only need to look at environmental issues, we also need to look at how we create new enterprises and jobs. So the first slide that I want to talk about is the amazing opportunities that are coming through in some of the new business models and technologies that have already been applied by people like Airbnb, Uber. And this is now filtering through to buildings. There's some very interesting new technologies that are being applied to, for instance, renewable energy systems, which are crowdfunded. The enterprises rent office roof spaces. They pay, individual members through sub-metering systems, and for very little input, very low costs. There's increased access to green renewable energy systems, and the same thing is starting to be applied to things like food, water, etc. And also this idea of kind of work exchanges and using the blockchain to increase access and share resources and services much more affordably and easily. And so there's a range of very interesting new models coming through for circular enterprises. And I think this potentially is really the kind of next area that will be coming through across the world, not just Europe and the States. I think there's a lot happening also in Africa. The next idea is around the idea of jobs. And what is interesting about circular enterprises is that they tend to be fairly labor intensive. They need people to recycle, operate systems, etc. And if we combine this idea, the idea of on-site service enterprises that can produce renewable energy services, hot water services, recycling, mobility, childcare, food at a building level, so at a large mixed-use building level scale or high-density housing scale, you start getting the situation where you're creating a whole range of circular enterprises, and you're enabling access to very good services that are resilient and are more affordable. So there's some very nice ideas coming through here, really to address the kind of major housing problems that need to be addressed in many developing countries. So most of Africa, a lot of Asia, and at a very affordable way that also creates many local jobs and enterprises. And so some of these ideas are captured in some of the papers that are mentioned in the slides. The last idea is about local growth, and what this is about looking at a neighborhood level and saying what are the different systems that happen at a neighborhood level that need to be in place for sustainability at a neighborhood level. So we need, low ecological footprint, healthy food that's affordable at a neighborhood level. And we can develop a set of synergies, a set of links between the production of food, the sale of food, the processing of food, through to the organic waste, the recycling and the fertility of the production of food within neighborhoods or around neighborhoods. We can do the same for water. There's a whole set of circular enterprises that can be developed around harvesting, grey water systems, irrigation. And if we look at materials and components within buildings, so things like furniture and equipment, components need to be manufactured, repaired, reused, recycled. And so what we can do is, if we think through these systems at a local level, we can develop very positive synergistic cycles that promote local growth. So you recycle effectively income locally to create more jobs, better environments, and better lifestyles for people within that neighborhood. And again, this has been written up as a paper, and there's some interesting examples. Thank you, Marion. I think that's it from me.
Great, and yes, indeed, very interesting examples. Thank you very much, Jeremy. You've given us a lot to think about, especially with regard to the potential local benefits of sustainable buildings and circularity. Before we continue with the next speaker, 2 reminders for you. Please, again, remember to go to menti.com for the online poll, but also please do send us your questions via the chat panel in Microsoft Teams. That's on the right-hand side of your screen. Send us your questions. If you can, direct them at a specific speaker or panelist, or more than one, but it would be really helpful if you did keep those questions coming. Thank you very much. And now we will continue with our next speaker as we focus on the business case for circular buildings. Cristiana Ceraldi currently manages the Built Environment Project at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. That's WBCSD in acronym. She's passionate about driving transformation towards a net zero carbon, circular, healthy, inclusive, adaptive, and resilient built environment through multi-sector and multi-stakeholder collaboration. Christiana's career in sustainability started in environmental NGOs such as WWF and Greenpeace, followed by years as an environment legal officer and CSR manager for the construction industry's trade associations in France and Italy. Before joining the WBCSD in 2014, she worked for the Italian government as a member of the cabinet of the environment minister. Cristiana holds a master's in European law from the University of Roma Tre, an LLM in international environmental law from the University of Wales, and a DAS in management of international organization from the University of Geneva. Quite a pedigree. Cristiana, welcome, and thank you for joining us. The microphone is now yours.
Thank you, Marion. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. So it seems that sharing the slides is a huge challenge. So since I'm not multitasking at all, I'll take just 1 second to ensure that I'll do this right. It's charging. Okay, can you see it right?
Not quite yet. I think it's still working, at least on my screen.
I can see it.
Okay.
Is it okay for everyone? Can you see it?
And yes. Now I see it as well. Yes, thank you very much.
Excellent. So I'd like to add a couple of numbers to the gloomy picture that Linda was mentioning before. So our world is currently only 9% circular, and unfortunately, the trend is negative. This is not a great number, and we're not going in the right direction. But the good news is that the remaining 91% is a fantastic, enormous opportunity that exists out there. And that was estimated by a recent study from Accenture at a 4.5 trillion opportunity by 2030. We strongly believe that if we're not able to capture, to illustrate, and to understand this financial opportunity, we will never get there. We will never scale the circular built environment. So I think that many of us at one point of our life bought a house and renovated it. So I bought a house a couple of years ago in the area, in the Geneva area where I live, and it was an almost abandoned house. So it really needed a massive renovation. And being conscious of the problem of the sector, when I selected contractors and workers, I used to ask to these guys, so, but what would you do with all this demolition waste? The windows, the heaters, the bricks? And they looked at me, you know, with a look half amused, half confused, saying, well, no worries, madam, everything will go into an authorized landfill. So I think that this is because they were not able to capture the value that this material still had. And even, when selecting materials, I wanted to choose recycled materials, recycled products. And there is a very limited offer of recycled materials. And often these materials are more expensive than the virgin products. So, of course, this was a single family house project, but I think it shows where we currently stand, and that we really need to be able to capture this value of the product at the end of their life, to transition from a linear to a circular economy. WBCSD at the end of 2018 has published this report, Scaling the Circular Built Environment, Pathways for Business and Government. And within this report, we identified which are the changes that each actor in the value chain, from the private and the public sector, has to make to get there, to reach this circularity. We also identified some enablers, the barriers, what is holding us back. So 5 main barriers were identified, which are related to technology, so to product innovation. This need to scale circular products, circular innovation. Regulation, so this need to have a legislation which enables this product, and standards that capture circular products, and also procurement, which allows and include circular principles. Culture and belief, that there's often this belief, this perception that recycled product or second-hand products are less performant than the raw materials one. Market, so the fact that, as I was saying, often recycled products are actually more expensive than the virgin materials one, and also the fact that, again, there are no data that can illustrate this financial opportunity. And overall education, so really the need to raise awareness on this amazing opportunity that is circular economy. We recently kicked off a work on that focuses and deep dives on 2 of these 5 barriers. So the market barrier and the educational one. On the market, what we want to address and what we want to capture is this data that shows the business case, for building circular. So business case for environmental project and mostly for circular projects. And on the educational part, we really want to raise awareness, and we want to raise awareness for the whole value chain, but especially want to raise awareness to financiers, developers, and investors, because many of these choices are made at the very early stage and then are irreversible after. So overall, we really believe that what we need to do in order to scale up circular built environment is to clearly illustrate the business case for investing in circular construction buildings, projects, but also products and services throughout the value chain. So this is what we're currently doing. I am very happy. So this is all for me, but I'm very happy to answer your question during the Q&A. So Marion, over to you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Christiana, for your insights on some of the issues surrounding the business world's adopting a circularity approach to building. And also thank you for your personal examples, which made the issue very concrete, if you'll excuse the pun. And now I'd like to remind you once more that a new question has been posted in our online poll. So please go to menti.com. We zoom the lens in a little more with our next panelist, who will talk about making housing both circular and affordable. Dr. Shailesh Agrawal is Executive Director at the Building Materials and Technology Promotion Council, BMTPC, of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs with the Government of India, which is working towards the mandate of affordable housing for all by promoting and transferring emerging housing technologies for faster and sustainable development at the grassroots level for the ordinary people of India. His areas of work include alternate building materials and construction technologies, disaster mitigation and management, skills development and capacity building, and project management and consultancy. Shailesh, hello and welcome. Please open your microphone and your camera and tell us more.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, yes, we do. I don't know if it's in the right mode. Perhaps Nora. Yes, that looks
perfect.
Good.
Okay.
Lovely, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, because it is afternoon in India. I am Dr. Agrawal from India. I represent Building Materials and Technology Promotion Council, an organization under Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. We are primarily a promotion council, which is mandated to transfer cost-effective, environment-friendly, sustainable building materials and construction technologies for field-level applications, including disaster-resistant technologies. I am indeed thankful to the organizers for choosing me to deliver Indian perspective for sustainable development of built environment. This slide shown here gives you the idea how fast India is urbanizing. If I give you figures by 2030, 40% of Indian population will live in urban centers. That amounts to 590 million people living in urban areas. To cater to this growing population, India has to build 600 to 800 million square meter urban space every year till 2030. That is a new Chicago every year. That is the reason that present government of India is running some of the biggest urban renewal schemes of the world for Indian citizens. These schemes are Housing for All Mission, Swachh Bharat Mission, you can say Clean India Mission, Smart City Mission, Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation, National Urban Livelihood Mission, Heritage Cities Development Mission, Urban Transport Mission. The comprehensive strategy being adopted by present government to run this scheme is 3S strategy, and that 3S means these 3S stands for skill, scale, and speed. Also, our approach towards urban renewal is receptive, innovative, and productive so as to foster sustainable growth and ensure better quality of living. India has a vast array of research laboratories and academic institutions who have been doing constant research in the area of waste management and its value addition. There are about 20 inorganic industrial waste coming from iron and steel industry, power industry, paper industry, and tannery industry, which have been identified and well researched over by the Indian researchers. And these waste have potential resource to produce value-added building materials and components. Just to give you an example, fly ash is a byproduct of thermal power plant and is being used as in cement as part replacement of cement known as Portland pozzolana cement. Similarly, there are about 10 agriculture waste which can be suitably used for manufacturing value-added building materials and components. If we talk about waste management, urban India generates 62 million tons of municipal solid waste each year and around 100 million tons of C&D waste. Therefore, Government of India is quite committed about solid waste management, making waste segregation at source mandatory, including informal sector such as rack pickers for waste management, using waste for gainful applications such as waste to energy, waste to RFD, that is refuse derived fuel, no non-recyclable waste having calorific value more than 1500 kilocalorie kg is permitted in landfills. As regards C&D waste, it has also been tackled in India very scientifically by bringing C&D waste management rules and establishing C&D waste processing centers in PPP mode, which collect C&D waste and processes it to produce various kind of materials and products such as aggregates, blocks, pavers, and put them back for the use of construction industry. We are running a Housing for All mission where our target is to construct 11.2 million houses in urban areas by 2022. And 2022 is the year when our nation celebrates 75th year of independence. So through this mission, we are also advocating what is written here, and we are advocating and promoting sustainable interventions to various federal government. Some of these interventions are written here, which primarily focus on cost-effective, clean, green, energy efficient, sustainable and affordable technologies. Since we have to construct around 11.2 million houses, which is a mammoth total, we also require housing technologies which can ensure faster delivery of houses such as precast, prefabricated offsite construction system. In 2019, we organized a Global Housing Technology Challenge to transplant best global housing technologies for Indian construction sector. We could find 54 new systems, and now we are using them to construct 6 lighthouse projects, which will serve as live laboratories for different aspects of transfer of technologies to field applications, including sustainability and affordability, and also how to replicate them in future. Through these new systems, our mission is to provide sustainable, disaster resilient houses to the citizens of India, which are affordable, livable, with minimum life cycle cost. Last but not the least, I leave you with this slide, which gives our Honorable Prime Minister's motto of reform, perform and transform. India is one of the fastest growing economy of the world, and we invite all global players to contribute and be part of India's growth story through sustainable intervention. Thank you once again for your patient hearing and giving me the opportunity to present Indian viewpoint. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we thank you, Shailesh, as well, particularly for your insights into the reform, perform, and transform approach to India's growth. Many challenges there and many opportunities. And once more, I'd like to remind you, our online participants, to go to menti.com to participate in our online poll. And don't forget to send in your questions, keep them coming for our panelists as we near the question and answer part of this session. That now brings us to our final speaker, who will, I'm sure, end this part of the session on a positive note as he focuses on sustainable building as an opportunity for recovery, building back better. Carlos Borges is an environmental engineer with the Medellin City Hall in Colombia. Since completing a PhD in urbanism, geography, and endowment of territories in France in 1988, he's worked with the UNDP as an expert in urban infrastructure in Congo-Brazzaville, with the California OES Emergency Service in the US, and with the Swedish Mission. He has national and international experience in sustainable construction projects and in the establishment of regulations, certifications, and incentives. He was also coordinator of the Commission on Technological Risk, Major Risk, in the Emergency Plan Against COVID-19 with the Administrative Department of Risk Management of Medellin, or DAGRED, where he managed actions to avoid the overload of health services and to improve habitat and construction conditions in the most affected sectors of the city. It's a real pleasure to have you with us today, Carlos. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marion, for your kind introduction. For me, it's a pleasure to be here with you to share our experience in green construction in Medellin and try to focus this time with the COVID-19 6-month speech that we have here. I made the relation with this time with green construction. All right, thank you, that is good. With green construction and with the different aspects of the circular economy. In our city, we have one special concept about green construction. We have one integral approach. The integral approach is that would include their residential, commercial, services, and industrial buildings. And all the public works and all the public space are considered in our green constructions regulations. We have big action to do here, and we are basically using the passive design. We are in the tropic. We have to use our some preferable condition from the sun, from the lights, and we use this passive design with natural illumination and ventilation. We try to control the hygrometric and the noise index, and we're using raining and gray waters. We are recycling materials, and we're using these materials and using shading with greenery and the trees for the absorption of CO equivalent. We work in the microclimate situation and in different heat areas here in the city, microclimates, and we are using the electrical mobility like you could see in the picture. We have big challenges here in the city. We had to retrofit this access construction almost six. I think it was the other one. You put back to the other. We had to make the retrofit of this big kind of construction, 650,000, almost 78 million for square meters. And the big challenge is with the educational centers and with the community centers in our city. We had a lot of that one, almost 250 or more. And we had made to some public-private alliance. We are improving with energy transition, and we made some research with the academic sectors. The task that we have by now is the task with the meeting of Paris, the COP 2021, that we had to improve the goals for the 50% of the 1930 years and 100 of the 1950 neutral carbon for our buildings here in the city. We have 7 green buildings here, 3 hospitals and 4 administrative centers, and 12 private hotels, commercial centers, banks, and we have a technical district. Out of the problem we have is many people make partial initiative by their own, and they don't make the register of down. The next one, please. Now we want to show you our plans we are doing facing the COVID-19 in the city. In our new development plan, we are retrofitting 9,237 houses with the investment of $50.2 million, and we are constructing some complex with 125 houses in an area of 3,242 square meters. For us, in our economy, in the circular economy in the city, we had to recover 34,70,000 employments, and we had to improve almost 20,000 houses with the public investment in the 4 years there. During the COVID, we made the construction of one special building that was an adaptation for the elder house here for the elderly people. And we made the adaptation of this building with the coverage of some urgent based almost on 150 and 90 CEUs unities. Our thermal district now is expanding its connectivity for more for green big buildings in the center of the city. We are using artificial intelligence and data, internet for the people, housing, internet, and free connection in poor districts. For us, it's a new concept. We think the green construction is needing to include this kind of criteria that have equity in the community connectivity and using some application, intelligent public service, and to have this right in the green construction costs. Some research we are doing too is with the universities. We are trying to improve the academic sector with some new technologies in nanotechnology, using microencapsulating materials to avoid the sound, give some more in our construction, in our housing. Next, please. For the economical situation, in green construction, we have the tax incentives and we have some public substitute incomes that have a big impact in the urban economy. For us, this green construction is related to the urban economy, and for the next 10 years, we have to build almost 195,000 new houses, about 15.6 million square meters. And we are giving some incentives, some deduction for the people in the taxes with the US dollar equivalent of $572,000. In the real equivalent is almost $4 million American dollars. We have the green public and private credit system with the bank systems and some cooperative system too. Something important is to take consideration of the cost of the evaluation of our green building construction. We are researching about the urban metamorphosis in America Latina, restructuring, financing, and commercialization in relation to sustainable construction. We made that with a special institute. We found that the green construction mediation for the levels for the certification are increasing the price of the construction, the effective price between 5 and 10%. And that is a big quantity here for the poor people. Something that we need to is to establish our own levels. We have here LEED, we have green, we have USGBC, we have ACE by now, and our own is CASA Colombia. We are trying to improve that with the low cost that is coming. In this sense, we're working with LEED, with the American brands, trying to improve something better and trying to change and include new variables in the evaluation they do. We include transportation because we need the parking for cycling and for electrical vehicles. And we introduce some concepts too to avoid some toxic materials in the buildings and to make the management of the waste that is using during the using of the construction we do. We have a lot of experience, a lot of things we do here, but by the moment I leaving that there, but I emphasize in the criteria that with the green construction, we avoid recharging the medical infrastructure, health infrastructure there, because COVID-19 is almost on urban big challenge, and they affect the poor communities and the crowded and with the high density communities. And we think they need to be connected. We build the digital connectivity to stay ready to follow these activities, education, to make the health consultation and to know what is happening during this confined time we are living here. I finish there and we carry on with the presentation, and I stay here expecting the question. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Marian.
Thank you, Carlos, for your presentation about building back better in the city of Medellin. And a big thank you to all of our expert panelists for your thought-provoking and informative presentations, but you cannot leave yet. We have now the Q&A, and there are a number of questions waiting for you all. However, before we transition to the Q&A part of this session, a final reminder, please go to menti.com for our online poll. And now the time has come for you, our online audience, to share center stage with us and with our expert speakers. Just before we start directing your questions and comments to our panelists via the chat in Microsoft Teams, we will kick off this interactive part of the session with a long-awaited and thoroughly pre-announced Mentimeter poll. Here to guide us through the results is Nora Stoiber, Program Management Officer with the Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction Global ABC, which, as you'll remember, is one of the organizers of this TEM-M. And Nora, by the way, is also the one whose disembodied voice helped us out of some of our technical difficulties during the session. Nora, over to you.
Thank you, Marianne, and it's great to be here with all of you. And warm thank you also for participating in our Menti live polling. I'm here to present you the results very quickly. And we started out with a little quiz question, so to speak, and just to test if you're paying attention, if you will. And you can see here, I think we had some trouble getting started, so the answers, they were not that many yet, but they will get more. What share of extracted resources go into housing and infrastructure? Magali and Linda pointed that out very nicely for us. And you can see here the different answers, and most of you chose the correct one. It's almost 50%. So it's a reminder of how incredibly important this sector is for resource extraction and, of course, with associated emissions, ecosystem degradation, and so on. So let's go to the next one. I just need to change. The next one is an interesting one. And thank you. Really, this I think gives us a very nice indication. In your opinion, what are key enablers for circular economy? And we gave you answer options here, from targets and commitments to regulation to incentives to planning and design for cities and buildings, and to resource efficiency and take-back strategies. And the results are relatively similar, but we do have two winners, and that's regulation. So, for instance, having adequate building codes, and resource efficiency and take-back strategies, which I think is a call especially to the private sector. So we see here also connected the two important players, I guess, national governments and materials companies. So great, thank you so much for answering. Let's move to the next one. So this one I will skip very quickly because it seems that people were a little bit hesitant to answer. In your opinion, what is needed for business sector companies to do business in a circular, for building sector companies to do business in a circular manner? Enter three words. We have will and leadership, effective incentives, and innovation. So there you go. Businesses, take note. And let me go to the next one. This is also a very interesting one, so it's great to see so many answers on this one. In your opinion, action from which stakeholder group is most important for the shift to circular buildings? And we gave you 7 options here, and we asked you to rank them. And the actually the 3 top ones are policymakers on the national government level, and then policymakers on a local government level, and materials companies. So stakeholders, take note. And it's really, we're particularly thankful that we were able to have speakers here from those 3 groups. That was, of course, we had a national government representative from India, a local government representative from Colombia, Medellin, and Lafarge will seem as a materials company. So take note. And of course, the others are also very important because we are talking about the entire value chain here, but it seems that our attendees think that those 3 have a special role. Or at least
Nora, may I just interrupt briefly? Yes. I can't really see the other slides on my screen. I don't know if that's the same for the other viewers, but can we just check to make sure that the correct slides are up there?
You can't see the slide at all?
I can see one slide. What share of extracted resources go into housing and infrastructure? I don't know if you were meaning to show other ones, or is that the correct slide?
I was meaning to show other ones. I'm not sure why this is not possible. That's let me. I'll try again. Thank you for letting me know.
Sure.
How about now?
Not yet. There we go. Okay. Yes, we see it, but it's not in the mode, I think, the larger mode that it should be in, but we do see that slide on the screen.
Okay, so sorry for that. I won't go back through all the slides because I don't think we have time, and I want to leave time for you to ask your questions directly to our speakers. But I hope you can see at least this one. This is the one that I just was talking about. So in your opinion, action from which stakeholder group is most important for the shift to circular buildings? And you can see here, as I just mentioned, the top 3: national government, local government, and materials companies. And as I was saying, it's really great that we have speakers from those 3 groups on the panel today. It doesn't mean, of course, that the others are not important. It just means that, in the opinion of our attendees, that those 3 may have a special role. So, and then I hope that with me shifting to the last one, that this works with a screen. So let's just give it a try. If not, then it's not the end of the world. Can you see this one?
Good. Yep, that looks good.
Okay, great. So the last question was, post-COVID-19 crisis, how can recovery efforts ensure a shift to a circular built environment? And we asked you for open-ended answers, your ideas. So what we see here is by introducing regulation requiring CO2 labeling of products or a life cycle approach. That's indeed a really good one. So we need regulation beyond just, quote unquote, the building code. Interesting also what we heard from India to that respect, the whole urban approach to really have a systemic approach. Enforcing regulation and building codes, really good point. It's not just about the regulation, it's also about enforcing it. So thanks for making that point. And COVID-19 crisis opened people's eyes and sparked the idea that humankind's actions affect and impact the balance of our environment, which gives us feedback in terms of natural events. This will help people to be conscious to change. So this is actually, I think, speaking to the kind of cultural shift that we need. And I think Christiana was also talking about this. We need a cultural shift for circularity. And I think Linda as well. It's not just about incentives. It's also about that. It's about awareness. And finally, less travel, local materials, reuse and recycle, innovate for upcycling. Also really great. And we heard on local materials also how important that is, and how, for instance, agro waste can be used. So thanks so much for answering our Menti questions. It's fantastic. We're really, really thankful. And with that, I will hand back over to our moderator, Marian, for the Q&A. And please do post your questions in the chat. Over to you, Marian.
Thank you very much, Nora. And again, thanks from me as well for all of you who participated in that poll. Wonderful, wonderful work, and a very interesting framing now for the Q&A to follow. So without further ado, we turn to some of the submitted questions from you, our audience. And our first question here, I will read, is directed at Christina and Magali. Perhaps we can start with Christiana, rather, says Christina here. Based on your experiences, which country or region is moving fastest to transition to circularity, and what has helped with this? Christiana, do you think you could take that?
Yeah, Europe is the country where things are happening, US following. The others, I think there's still a long way to go. Why this is happening? For sure, regulation has helped a lot, incentives, cultural innovation, and yeah, regulation came very strongly as an enabler, for example, in the Mentimeter. But we think that also, again, showing this business case and understanding who in the value chain get this value, and so where this value happens and how it happens through which business case will be also an important enabler to move this conversation forward. But to reply to the question in which regions, I would say Europe.
Thank you. Magali, your turn to put in your input.
Yeah, no, I can only confirm and agree with Christiana said, but I maybe just complement with one example. In my presentation, I mentioned Susteno. Susteno is first cement using 20% of rubbles, of construction rubbles. And you could, some people would say 20% is a lot. I think 20% is not a lot, is not enough. And the thing is, it's actually not a technical reason why we stopped at 20%. We could do more. However, legislation stops us from doing more. So I think legislation has to become an enabler and not a stopping. And we need to work with the scientists so that when we have a limit, the limit is dictated by science and not by something else. Obviously, it's not my interest to make a cement that's going to end up doing a concrete that will make building collapse. So obviously, I do not want to do that. But also, I want to make it more recyclable. So I need scientists need to work with or legislators need to listen to the scientists and make sure that we don't put the barriers too low.
Thank you very much. And by the way, if any of you wish to jump in on any of these questions, even if they are directed at another speaker, feel free, just raise your hand and we'll call on you as well. We do have another question now, and this one is for Linda. Linda, the question is as follows: which materials are easier to reuse or recycle, and how does this vary by region?
Yeah, this is a big question, but thank you for that. I think it really depends on the actual building. So in some cases, we can look at timber, for example, which is easy to reuse for some purposes because you can kind of alter it to the exact dimensions that you actually use for the new building. But at the same time, wood can also be, you know, if you go out and paint it, you would have difficulties in reusing it for another building. Especially what we see is that some of the barriers are also that if you use, for example, paints that contain hazardous substances, we need to take that out of the building and avoid, you know, putting it into a new building. We also see some things about new building materials, like, for example, concrete elements, where you can actually reuse them directly again. So I've been engaged with several companies who were trying to develop these click system, where you actually can click open the links that are, you know, between two elements, and then you can reuse them directly. But it very much depends on the actual situation, the actual case, the actual country, etc. So it's hard for me to be more specific than I am here.
So anyone else who wishes to add their opinion on this question? Okay, if not, then we'll move to the next one, but this next one I will throw in the ring to you all. It's quite an interesting one. Is there a trade-off, in your view, in making buildings more energy efficient and designing for circularity? And if so, which one should be the highest priority? So is there a trade-off, in your view, in making buildings more energy efficient and designing for circularity? Is there a trade-off, and which one should have priority? Perhaps we can hear from one of the gentlemen. Jeremy, do you want to try that one? Yes, go ahead.
Yes, hi. I don't think there's a trade-off. I think there's, with small-scale renewable energy systems that work at a local level, at a neighborhood level, or at a site level, it's quite possible to have, you know, very strong circular systems. If we think of biogas, biomass, photovoltaic systems, you can create circular enterprises that enable that. I think for that to happen, you have to have a very energy efficient building. So you have to have, you know, highly energy efficient lighting, equipment, etc. So I think you have to have the energy efficiency, and then I think the possibility of using renewable energy supports circular economics and new enterprises and local jobs. So which then reinforce low carbon, resilient development.
So no contradiction in your view, and Linda, you had your hand up as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to say that it really depends on, again, the system of the building that you're looking at. But my recommendation is actually to do a life cycle assessment on the building to see where are large impacts. Is it within the resources or is it within the consumption of energy for the building? So I would just recommend doing a life cycle assessment, and if you can also make a life cycle cost assessment.
Thank you for adding that thought to the conversation. We now have a question from Michael Scharf, and he is directing his question at Christiana. The question is, how can we facilitate more circularity collaboration along the different value chain steps? How can different players interact to save resources and turn waste into construction solutions?
Yeah, thank you, Marion. Thank you, Michael. So collaboration with the supply chain and engagement with consumers is key to enable circularity in the built environment. How can we increase it? I think that an important enabler here is the digitalization and also material passport, material repository. I think the companies need to know which kind of materials are available, at what price, and the quantity available. So yeah, strongly believing that digitalization and material repository, material passport will be an important enabler to enhance collaboration in the value chain.
And I think, Carlos, you have your hand up as well.
Yeah, I think we have to work so much in the commercial system, because in the commercial distribution, commercial mediator, the tertiarization, we have the prices that are increasing sometimes, and we need to establish some good system of cooperatives, some social system, the bank, in different ways how to let the people obtain this material at low cost. I think it's something to do with the commercial system too.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think, Linda, you also had your hand up, your hand raised for that.
Yeah, also, I just want to supplement to Christiana and Carlos. As in my example, in my presentation, a good example is Velux, who is producing windows. And actually, they were not, they didn't have a take-back system in the very beginning. But due to the prices of, getting rid of waste, incineration prices, etc., they started seeing that it was actually a business benefit by starting taking it back and engaging throughout the value chain. So prices can also be, a way of trying to start the value chain cooperation.
Clearly, and I think no surprise to any of us there. We have a question now for Shailesh. If you are there, if you can hear us, what are key, I'm sorry?
Yes, I'm there.
Yes, you are, there you are. What are key barriers to making housing both affordable and circular? So what are key barriers to making housing both affordable and circular, particularly, I guess, related to your experiences in India?
I can tell you in Indian context, I would say least cost being the selection criteria for projects is one of the major impediment for promotion of innovation in construction sector. Slowly, we are now introducing quality come cost-based selection process for the projects. Secondly, whatever we may talk about, but when we talk to engineers and architects, the terms like life cycle cost, circularity, embodied energy are still at nascent stage and will take time to get absorbed by the professionals. That's my frank opinion. Also, I think one of the panelists touched it upon, there is still need to create a market for waste-based building materials and products. Also, circularity.
Well, you just froze, I'm afraid. We just lost you. I wonder if you could, Shailesh, if you could try to perhaps log on and off again. We can pick up that train of thought when you return. In the meantime, while we wait for you to come back, Jeremy, perhaps you could jump in and fill the gap as we wait for Shailesh to reconnect. Just a moment.
Sorry, yeah. Not disconnected. So the third point I wanted to make is still there is need to create a market for waste-based building products and materials. Also, circularity requires policy level interventions by various federal governments, incentivization, and fast track approvals. So, in my opinion, these are the barriers. Thank you.
And now, Jeremy, please jump in.
Yeah, thanks. No, I think the middle example that I gave starts addressing this issue of affordability, because just the capital cost of housing, high density housing, is a huge problem.
Yes.
But if you disaggregate all the components, so if you take the basic structure and then you look at the water system, so a hot water system, a grey water system, you look at renewable energy system, you look at a waste system, and you allocate those costs to circular enterprises who can run and maintain and supply those services to occupants, you can then reduce substantially your capital costs, because those costs are then borne by the entrepreneurs. And you then get services and products that are much lower cost. So the operational and the capital costs can be reduced. So I think there's some very nice ideas that can come through if we look at circular approaches, not just to building buildings, but also to how we run buildings, because you can create a lot less waste and local entrepreneurs and jobs. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeremy. And actually, we have another question. It's perhaps related to what you were just saying for Mr. Agrawal. Is there a plan to include requirements for compliance with the Eco-NIWAS Simhita code in the planned affordable housing projects? This is from Maxine Jordan, IEA.
Yes. What we are doing since the inception of any project, or whenever a project or a project report is being prepared, we are now making it mandatory to get the compliance as regards green rating systems. So in India, there are two prevalent systems. One is GRIA and another one is IGBC. Similar to your LEED system. So we are making them mandatory in residential sector. For industries, it is already mandatory, but in housing also slowly we are making them mandatory. Particularly for government projects, it is being made mandatory. Thank you.
And Jeremy, once more, is your hand up or did you just forget to put it down? I do have another question for Magali Anderson. What do construction companies need to be front runners in circular economy?
I think a bit of everything that has been discussed just before, which is really legal framework. So let's take an example. The construction rebels, I can really, there is a hierarchy of waste, and I can really transform them back in cement and concrete, which is really the best thing you can do with them. But as long as landfilling fees are such that it's not profitable for waste companies to give us that waste or to sell us that waste versus landfilling it, then it will be hard for me to put my hands on it. My own limitation right now, it's more to find that waste, to capture that waste, than to use it. We are deploying all those products I was mentioning in the world, but the problem is access to that waste. So as long as we don't have this legislation supporting us, it's going to be difficult, but we are very much pushing for it. And that's why I'm so happy to have the people on the panel here who can help for that push.
I am sure we are all revved up and excited, and we'll get right to work when we leave this session. So thank you for that very much. We have only about 2 minutes left. I don't know, Carlos, I would like to give you a question, but if you can keep it very short within a 2-minute framework. It's a big question, though. What are lessons learned from the current pandemic for promoting circular buildings? Oh, we cannot hear you, I'm afraid. Your microphone, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, I think we need to rectify many of the houses in the popular districts and in the crowded area with the very high density. because it's almost the case in the big cities in Europe, in Italy, or maybe in Paris. There are some districts there with the house condition, house ventilation or house hygiene is not very good. For us, it's a big challenge that we are trying to improve that. We are working with the municipalities, we are working with the private and some people there, and we have to the disposition of a big budget to recreate some employments, to make the people be active and to reactivating our economy for the construction sector. That will be very important for us.
Thank you very much. You did indeed keep that even under 2 minutes. Thank you so much, Carlos. And now we really come to the end of the session. Before we do, however, I will wrap up with some main summary points. And of course, I will be thanking everybody again at the end of that summary. But for now, thank you so much, our expert speakers, for your interesting contributions and discussion. And of course, thanks to our online audience and participants for sending us those questions and participating in the poll and making this session what we wished it to be, which is truly interactive. Again, your inputs will be informing recommendations to policymakers, so they are very important for us and for the TEM-M meeting. So sit tight. We'll just go through the summary and then I will bid you adieu, but thanks again, everybody. And now to the summary. So I think I will ask you, you can stay on with cameras if you wish, or you can mute yourselves and go off camera if you wish to take a sip of water or whatever. But in any case, I will now go into the summary of what we have heard today. So today we heard some of the following points. In a world of increasingly limited resources, we cannot afford to overlook the buildings and construction sector. That is clear, because it is responsible for almost 50% of extracted resources. We heard how we must find a way to build back better by constructing circular and thereby more affordable, comfortable, and efficient homes. And we heard how we need to recognize buildings as the material banks that they are, a wonderful turn of phrase, material banks. We also learned about the 6 R's of circular buildings: reduce, reuse, recycle, recover, redesign, and remanufacture. The importance of different aspects of the circular economy were highlighted, such as the reduction of sustainable construction costs through the reuse and recycling of materials, cooperative and self-construction systems, soft credits and incentives, the generation of new construction jobs, and certification systems with labeling that is adapted to each country. We heard about new business models, about technology, circular enterprises, and synergistic relationships, and how they can be used to leapfrog over conventional solutions, to create systems that are less wasteful in developing economies, systems that will produce environmental benefits, as well as jobs and local growth. Another fascinating part of the discussion focused on the digital connectivity of homes and other types of buildings, and how that must be included in the criteria of sustainable constructions. The idea was raised that it should be established as a human right for climate change and equity, and also that connectivity saves time, energy, and emissions, and will increasingly be embedded as a way of life post-COVID. We also have some points, of course, from our Q&A and from our polls. We need to avoid pure environmental arguments and focus on added value. We need to reshape business models. Materials companies can become waste treatment and waste use companies, seeing waste as a true resource. But we need all players along the value chain. The advantage of circular economic approaches is that they're labor intensive and produce on-site services which promote local growth. Our world is only 9% circular. We have a 4.5 trillion business opportunity for the remaining 91%. Amazing statistics. Enablers are scaling product innovation, illustrating business cases, enabling regulation, shift in culture. And we need an entire urban transformation where waste is seen as a true resource, for example, fly ash and agricultural waste. We can use COVID-19, the economic crisis, to build back better. Cities can set targets like Medellin's carbon neutral by 2050 target, incentives for retrofits that promote local growth, tax incentives for green buildings, and working with certification, also to promote passive design. And finally, overall, we heard a clear call to action, urging everyone to get involved, all of us, to find common solutions for all stakeholders throughout the building's value chain. Partly also because of the enormous economic value in the circular economy that needs to be captured, and that, especially post-COVID, can provide a huge wealth of opportunity to build back better. And with that, we come to the end of session 2 of the TEM-M 2020. Many thanks to our expert panelists who presented such a broad range of ideas, trends, and solutions to the challenges that lie ahead as we strive to build back better. And of course, a huge thank you to you, our audience, for your enthusiastic encouragement, your engagement and participation. And finally, accolades to the session's co-organizers, the UNFCCC Secretariat team and Global ABC. We hope to see you again next Wednesday for the final session of the TEM-M 2020, Developing Pathways for Moving to Scale. Stay safe, be well, and for me, Marion Canute, it's goodbye for now.